Does Taylor Ward still make a great fit for the Royals? I'll give you my thoughts next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into another edition of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I am your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. You also can listen to us on wherever you get your podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wondering how we do this channel and what you can expect on a day-to-day basis, I bring you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes in length, as well as 60-second YouTube shorts after the Royals games. But you can also count on the Locked On Royals postcast, which is hosted by Chance Lebo. He will come to you live after every one of those Royals games for about 15 to 20 minutes or so. So that's going to start up again as early as tomorrow when the Royals begin a 3-game series in Miami against the Marlins. Before we get started, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Those terms apply. So again, download Gametime today. What time is it? It is game time. We promised that we would continue to go over some trade packages, some hypothetical trade packages, some trade prospects, I guess I should say, going into Friday, because we knew that all week long we weren't going to have any Royals games to talk about, so we might as well go over some ideas of who the Royals might be targeting and who would make sense for this lineup. Now, there are a lot of guys out there that would be obvious upgrades for this lineup. They got the power, they've got the on-base number, maybe multiple years of control, but this also comes down to affordability. What's truly realistic for the Royals? I'll start things off by saying I've gotten a lot of comments, and I have no doubt in my mind that for the Mailbag Friday tomorrow, which if you want to get your question in, leave it below on this video or just look for my tweet that I put out about 3 hours ago. Jarren Duran's a name that comes up a lot. Well, why not Seth Lugo for Jarren Duran? Why not so-and-so for Jarren Duran? The Red Sox have won 10 in a row. They've already traded away Rafael Devers, and even though Jarren Duran's not the perfect fit for Boston even, he's coming off a career year last year, but they've got a very young outfield, and they've got a lot of at-bats to give to multiple guys in that outfield. Jarren Duran's still one of their main players, and after winning 10 in a row, I don't see the Red Sox, unless they were to lose 10 or 12 in a row leading up to the deadline, they would be actively shopping Jarren Duran. And even if they were and were seriously considering moving him, it's going to take a haul that I just don't know if the Royals have enough to get that done. So I'll get that out of the way. I'll probably double down on it, though, tomorrow because I'm sure I'm going to get multiple questions on Jarren Duran. The name that I wanted to bring up, and I understand that yesterday I talked about Jeffrey Springs and bringing in another starting pitcher. I might address that a little bit more tomorrow because I imagine I'm going to get some questions when it comes to the pitching market. I had to bring up this name again, though, because I just feel that the closer we get to the 31st, the more likely this deal is to happen. Now, I can say with 100% confidence that Royals' interest in Taylor Ward was not just, a smokescreen. That was always legitimate. The Royals have really wanted Taylor Ward for a long time, and it just never matched up. When Taylor Ward was available last year, he did have an extra year of control than he does right now, of course. He had 2 more years of control. He was putting up even better numbers. The Angels were not as good as they are this year, but they were having really high asking prices and very expensive trade packages to move him. And the Royals just weren't willing to do that. Like, if they would have gone down in their price a little bit, I think Taylor Ward would have been a Royal last year, and he would have been their starting outfielder, probably their starting left fielder for the 2024 postseason. Now you go 365 days later, Taylor Ward's not having as good of a year as he did last year. He's hitting 224, but he's OPSing north of 800 since June 10th. He's still an above league average bat. How often have we talked about that on the show? Searching for somebody that can have a OPS plus of 100. He's at 108. He's got 21 home runs on the season. The advanced metrics aren't as good as they were last year. They're still good enough. But I also believe that the down year and the one less year of control makes him more affordable. Now, your first question may be, well, Jack, why would the Angels trade Taylor Ward? They're actually ahead of the Royals in the American League wildcard race, and they could have him next year if they wanted to. In the same way the Royals want Taylor Ward, who's to say the Angels don't want to keep him around for next year? And then they can figure it out again at the trade deadline, whether they're in it or not. The Angels have a negative 62 run differential. Now, the Royals are not a ton better. They're negative 28. But you can look at the Royals' second half schedule being the second easiest in all of baseball, and they're 47-50. They've got an MVP player like Bobby Witt Jr. They've got a top pitching staff. The Angels are 47 or 48-50, I believe it is, and nothing they've done really pops. There are good players on that team, Zach Neto being one of them. They've also got Shanuel is another guy over there in that lineup, Nolan Shanuel. They also have a couple of rental guys and one-year deal guys that have performed above expectations this year. Their rotation's not very good, though, and their bullpen has its issues as well. So a negative 62 run differential. They also have a brutal schedule to open the second half. People have been taking issue with that as well. Me saying second half. Like, I understand it's not 81 games and 81 games. They just call it the second half of the season. So, yes, I know that there's not 81 games left. There's 65, and the Royals have already played 97. But in the second half, they open up with the Phillies on the road, the Mets on the road, the Mariners at home, and the Rangers at home. All of those teams are incredibly good. So there's a chance by July 31st, the Angels just bottom out there. And even if they don't, the run differential does tell you a lot about the team. And you could say the exact same thing about the Royals. Well, is a team with a negative 28 run differential going anywhere? You can make a very strong case. But the Royals have already put a stake in the ground that they appear to be buying. You don't go get Adam Frazier a rental bat if you're planning on selling or you're still up in the air. This, to me, feels like they are going to make a move sooner rather than later. Why not Taylor Ward? Taylor Ward fits every single thing we've talked about for months. Is he a corner outfield bat? He is. Okay. Where does he play in the outfield? Well, he plays left field. He's got 91 starts out there this year, and he started in left field 140 plus times last year. The reason this is important and why he's more of a fit than Adolis Garcia is, who we talked about on our episode yesterday, or maybe it was Tuesday, but Adolis Garcia was a right fielder. It still is a right fielder. And he's one of the better defensive right fielders in all of the game. So you're not bringing Garcia in to play left. You would then be asking Jack Caglione to move again and be the left fielder while he's still trying to pick up right field. That doesn't feel like the easiest thing to do. You're still trying to get his feet wet with the outfield. So you might as well stick to one spot out there. If you get Taylor Ward, he's in left field. He's been a left fielder pretty much his entire career. So you put him out there in left field. Check. So you get that box marked off. Is he a league average bat? He's actually 8 points higher than the league average. So you take that as well. Check that box off. Does he have multiple years of control? He has an extra year of control. That's something that matters to the Royals. And for the fourth box here, can having that one less year of control drive the price down? I believe it can. Last year, the Angels had a better version of Taylor Ward with 2 more years of control, and you're able to ask for a lot there. But the Royals might be able to go to the Angels, and still they could have the high asking price because they don't have to move him. He's not a rental bat. But I could see that price being a little bit cheaper. He hit 246 last year. He's down to 224. And that doesn't scream a great hitter, but I promise you when you hit 21 home runs and you've been hot of late, and it's going to tell you that bat can really have an impact on the Royals lineup. So the numbers have been good of late. That's maybe the 5th box to check off there. All of those things just scream like a Royals move. And I'll add on one more thing here. I read Jim Bound's article from 2 weeks ago, and it was highlighting guys that are most likely to be traded. And it was asking executives who they feel is the most likely guy to be traded. I will preface this. It's not perfect. Like Alex Bregman's on that list. Like some execs believe that's a possibility. Aroldis Chapman. I mean, Boston has a playoff spot. And who knows? I'm never going to say never, but there's a chance that they just say, no, fully buying now. Even though we traded Rafael Devers, we're not trading away these guys. It would take an absurd offer for us to move a guy like Bregman. So not every name on this list makes a ton of sense. But when it gets to Taylor Ward, you go to some of these other names, and there's about 3 or 4 teams that are linked. It's like the Phillies and the Padres and the Mets or the Dodgers or the Yankees. There's multiple teams that are linked to a certain player in this list that executives are talking about. And when it gets to Taylor Ward, the only thing it says on potential teams is this would be a great move for the Royals. And I just choose to believe that when you get that much smoke and people talk about Taylor Ward and the Royals, it's just a match made in heaven. And we've known that now for a while. But the fact that they add Adam Frazier and they're looking for offensive help, they're looking for a corner outfield bat, they're looking for guys they can afford. Taylor Ward has always made the most sense. And I think I just can't ignore it anymore. Like if I were to put a list together and put the most likely players to be acquired by the Royals, Taylor Ward is number 1. Again, the Angels may decide to buy, but they are not screaming buy to me. They are screaming a team that has played above what they're expected to. I mean, they're, the Pythagorean theorem, the win-loss, their expected win-loss, all of that. It's well below what they are right now. And maybe you look at that and say, let's get some value for the guys we got enough out of in the first half, 97, 98 games worth, and let's try to build a younger core. Does Taylor Ward stick around? He might, because I also thought he was going to get moved last season, and I also thought he was going to get moved in the offseason. But now here's another opportunity, and if the Royals have to give away one of those top 10 prospects, you don't want it to be your untouchables, and in my opinion, that's Carter Jensen and David Shields. But if it's anybody else in that list, I would be seriously considering it because I feel that Taylor Ward can upgrade you now and upgrade you in the future. We'll dive into our next segment talking about these final 65 games. Who's going to take off and who's maybe going to fall off a little bit. I'll give you my thoughts next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find us on wherever you get your podcast. Want to tell you about the title sponsor tonight in Gametime. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Those terms apply. So again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This has been a segment I've been wanting to do all week long. I just wanted to save it until the eve of the second half kicking off again. And tomorrow night, the Royals will resume play in Miami against Sandy Alcantara and the Marlins. I don't know yet who the Royals starters are going to be. I'm sure we'll know tomorrow morning. I have no doubt in my mind about that. But you got these final 65 games, and I expect this team to add. I expect this team to add a few more bats. I expect this team to add a starter. It just feels that this team is going to try to make a push. And if it doesn't work out, hopefully you are acquiring players that can be there next year. So maybe prepare yourself for that. Whether this team is going to make it or not, they are going to try and make a push. They are going to try to add pieces to have a well above average second half. If you are in the camp of they should sell, I just have not heard anything that makes me believe they're going to sell. Maybe these next 12 games can give us an answer one way or another. I just will go back to the fact that the Adam Frazier deal does not scream sell, and that it more so tells us they're going to be making moves prior to July 31st. So of the guys on the roster right now, who is bound to take off? Who is bound for regression? The easiest pick for me is Bobby Witt Jr. I believe Bobby Witt Jr. is going to have a ridiculous second half. He did last year. He did the year before that. Whenever the weather heats up, he just takes off. And once again, he was passed over to be a starter in the All-Star game. That might fuel him a little bit. He worked with some of the personnel in the Royal system. They found something he needed to tweak in his swing, and he's been hitting well over 300 since then. The power is starting to show as well. I expect a 330 or 340 second half from him. I expect him to get close to 30 home runs in the second half. He's going to look like the Bobby Witt Jr. we all expected him to be from the get-go. We didn't get that too much in the first half. We got it toward the very end. But for the most part of that first half, he was struggling like a lot of the other Royals hitters. So he is somebody, no doubt in my mind, I expect him to have an incredibly strong second half. Now, the way I want to do this is one player I expect to take off, one player I expect to regress a little bit. This one I hate doing, and it is going to make some people upset that want to trade away Seth Lugo. But I am expecting Seth Lugo to have some regression there, just in the same way he did last year. He's on pace to get close to 200 innings again. He is pitching incredibly well, but he also did that in the first half last year. And then when we got to August and September, he still had his great moments. I'll never forget his 7-inning shutout performance in the Bronx, where he struck out 10 Yankees, and he kind of almost revitalized that 2024 season for him, because he had gone through a stretch where his ERA was over 4.4 and just wasn't working as deep into the games. And you could see the fatigue was setting in a little bit. So I expect him not to have a severe regression, but I could see him having a little bit worse of a second half in these final 65 games than he had a great first half, which was the first 65 games. That also included a short IL stint when he missed some time with the blister on his finger. The next one I do believe is going to take off as well is Salvador Perez. Not to the same length as Bobby Witt Jr., but I see Salvi, with the weather heating up, putting together a league average final 65 games. I can see him getting to the career 1,000 RBI mark. I could absolutely see him getting to the 300 home run mark. We were just starting to see Salvi heat up before we got to the All-Star break, and I see that continuing into the second half. It's going to be the up and down, as we all expect. You know, he'll have those stretches where he's hitting 350 for 2 weeks, and then he's hitting 140. That same old Salvi, that's going to happen. But I think we're going to see far less of those ugly stretches, because I expect, if the offense is going to be adding some new pieces, to have less downtime. I think there'll be more of a middle-of-the-pack offense if they can add the right pieces. The next guy I think that's going to have a little bit lesser of a second half, and this shouldn't be too much of a shock, it's Kris Bubic. I have my reasons here, and it has nothing to do with his overall stuff. He is not built yet to throw 190 to 200 innings. And he's worked more than I thought he was going to work in the first half. And we could tell in those last couple of starts, he wasn't as sharp as he was back in April and May and June. He's still going to have one incredible season. I mean, he's already been an all-star this year. It's been a 100% success for Kris Bubic. But like we saw with Walker last year, like we saw with Lugo, he's going to hit a lull a little bit. He's going to go through some of those starts where maybe he doesn't make it out of the fourth inning. And he might have only given up 1 or 2 runs, but you want to make sure you protect him enough where he's good to go by hopefully the postseason, or just able to start at a high level at the end of September when you're still fighting for a playoff spot. But Kris Bubic threw, 30 innings last year? You go from 30 innings to 170, you're going to have some fatigue set in at some point. Jumping back over to somebody I think is going to have a good second half. Maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I very well may be doing this because I've done it before. That's an absolute positive. Jack Caglione hit 140 in the first half. I mean, about as unplayable offensively as you could get. And the Royals have no choice but to let him play through it. That's just the reality of this situation. They are not going to bench him for anybody. He is going to play out the rest of the season. Sending him down to AAA does nothing, because if he goes down and hits 400 in AAA, I really don't care. It's a matter of, can he hit in the major leagues? And I want to credit Jake Eisenberg here, because I wasn't paying too much of attention to this. He has been, since being called up, the number 1 unluckiest hitter in baseball. It's not always going to mean everything, and it sounds like an excuse, but Jack Caglione clearly has the tools. He's got the power, the makeup to be a prolific power hitter for this lineup. But some of those balls he's tagged have just found an outfielder's mitt or he's rolled over to second base. And that's going to be the thing I'm watching for. I can live with the hard flyouts. I don't want to see the ground balls to second base. I don't want any worm burners here. I want to see him get the ball into the air. And I was at the game on Saturday, the second to last game before the All-Star break. And he almost had a ball off the wall in left center field. And again, it sounds like I'm just trying to put lipstick on a pig. But that's another part where I look to and say, that's a good sign. If you're going to hit the ball hard and hit the ball in the air, I'd like to see it go to the opposite field a little bit as well. And he had his moments in the Pirates series. He had his moment as well in what series was it? Maybe it was on the road. He had 2 home runs. Maybe it was twice in the Pirates series. I can't quite recall. Now, am I saying he's going from a 140 hitter to a 300 hitter? No. I also believe it's vitally important he's a league average bat for these final 65 games. And I'm going to roll the dice, and I'm going to drink the Kool-Aid and say that some of those numbers are going to improve, and it's going to translate into more success. So he's the third guy I expect to improve on. And lastly, I'm going to go with, I hate doing this, but I can see a world in which I don't want to pick a pitcher. I want to pick a position player. I could see someone, even as simple as like Kyle Isbell, regressing down to a 210 to 215 hitter. I could see, Maikel Garcia trend in the opposite direction and just not be a 300 hitter. That's probably a better pick there. I don't see Maikel hitting 300 in the second half, but if he can hit 275, 280, I can live with it. Like a slight regression. We're not talking about severe regression, and we're not talking about a severe change in positive production for these other 3, except for Bobby Witt Jr. I feel that it's really going to be a severe progression in terms of what he's going to do in the second half. So those are my 3 for the positive end, and those are my 3 for the trending downward end. All right, for our final segment, we are going to preview. It feels like it's been forever since we've done this. We're going to preview the upcoming series against the Miami Marlins. That's next on Locked On Royals. You are tuning to Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. And if you want to be involved in our Mailbag Friday tomorrow and you want to get a question in, leave it below on this YouTube video or just look for my tweet. Again, my username is @JohnnyJ_15. That is @JOHNYJ_15. As I said before the break, it feels like forever since I've done this. And I'm a big baseball guy, as everybody knows, because I'm doing this podcast for starters. But, man, the All-Star break just drags on for me. Like, it was fun to watch the Derby. It was fun to watch the All-Star game. And then the minute the All-Star game wrapped up on Tuesday night, I was ready for the final 65 to start. I was already ready for Friday. Because you get into a routine of watching this team every single night. I just care about that. And these players did deserve time off. They deserve time with their families, take a vacation, whatever they want to do, because they've been playing nonstop for the last handful of months. But it feels good to preview a series that begins tomorrow night. The unfortunate part is I don't know who's going to be starting for the Royals. I have a couple of ideas on what they might do because you've had an entire week off. The Marlins are just going back to their number 1 in the rotation, even though the number 1 guy has not put up number 1 numbers. But the Royals could just turn things over to Seth Lugo and then go Seth Lugo, probably Michael Wacha at that point, and then Chris Bubich. And then you would save Noah Cameron and Michael Lorenzen's spot for the Chicago series. And honestly, that's what I think they're going to do because that pushes off the Lorenzen start as long as you can. So my guess, and I could be way off, but I'm going to preview this series like it's what they're going to do. So tomorrow night, it'll be Sandy Alcantara, a big trade chip for the Marlins. At one point, he definitely was the number 1 pitching trade chip in all of baseball. But he's 4-9 with a 7.22 ERA. If I'm not mistaken, that's the highest qualified ERA in all of baseball. He has been unbelievably disastrous this season. And even though he still technically is the Marlins number one, I don't see him being on the team much longer. And it's just been one bad start after the other. If you want to give him credit, he is eating the innings. It feels very Jordan Lyles-ish, but he doesn't have Jordan Lyles stuff. He's still got powerful stuff. But here's what he's done of late. Now, he was turning things on a little bit in June. He had an ERA of 4.34 in 5 starts, but then he got bombed in his 2 outings in July. He faced the Brewers back on the 4th of July, and he gave up 5 runs in 6 innings. And then against the Reds, and that was at Great American Ballpark, so a launching pad, he gave up 6 runs on 9 hits in 5 innings. The strikeout numbers are not there this year. He's thrown 91 innings and only 71 strikeouts. In fact, his season high is only 8, and that was set back on May 11th against the White Sox of all teams. But in that start, he still gave up 4 earned run in 5 2/3. And I'm going on the fly here, but only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 starts this season of looks like 18. So 7 of his 18 starts, he has allowed 3 runs or less. Only 7 times. Every other start, which is 11, it's been 4 or more. And this is maybe his last start in Miami, Lone Depot Park as it's now called. And the Royals have shown an ability to hit power pitchers before. I know it's going to seem like the typical Royals thing where you have a guy with a 7.22 ERA and they only get maybe 1 run or 2 off of them. Sandy Alcantara, though, is just a shell of himself. He's no longer the guy he once was, and I'm not sure the Marlins have enough leverage anymore. I mean, you could expect him to bounce back somewhere. It's also hard to boast about a 7.22 ERA. I know what people are going to say. They've already said it about my tweet earlier this afternoon, but I think it's going to be Sandy Alcantara going up against Seth Lugo. So I believe Lugo is going to start in game 1 there. And then in game 2, it's going to be Michael Wacha, in my opinion, going up against Cal Quantrill. That's already been announced by the Marlins. Quantrill has a 5.62 ERA in 18 games this season, 81 2/3 innings pitched, and he's got 67 strikeouts. He's done pretty much the same in each and every month. Last 7 starts, 5.29 ERA. Last 15 games, a 5.59 ERA, and on the season, 5.62. So he's been the same guy from April to where we are right now, July 17th. But he was somebody I actually thought the Royals might try to make a play on in the offseason just to have as a swing starter. Who knows? Maybe they are looking at Cal Quantrill to get a little bit of pitching depth for the second half push of the season. But here's what he's done in his last handful of starts. Back on June 29th, he gave up only 2 earned in 5 innings against Arizona on the road. Then he gave up 2 earned in just 3 2/3 against Milwaukee, and then 5 earned at Great American Ballpark against the Reds. Now, looking at some of the numbers he's had at home, as I said, the 2 earned in 3 2/3 back on July 5th against the Brewers. He also went 4 innings and gave up 3 against the Phillies. That was back on June 17th. On June 4th against Colorado, his former team, 2 earned runs and 5 innings of work. And then you go to May against the Giants, 5 innings, 2-run ball. Against the Rays back on May 18th, 5 innings of 1-run ball. Against the Dodgers at home, 5 innings of 1-run ball. So he's been a much better pitcher at home. I could see the Royals maybe struggling a little bit with him just because he's been a much better home pitcher than he has been on the road. So those splits are pretty drastic there. But I expect it to be Michael Wacha going up against Cal Quantrill. Another part I don't like about that, the Royals offense doesn't give Michael Wacha any form of run support. Then on Sunday, I'm going to roll the dice and think that it's Chris Bubich. Bubich threw on Tuesday for the All-Star game. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that would be the 5th day, which would line him up to throw against Jansen Junk, who's been a pleasant surprise for the Marlins. This one will be at 12:40. By the way, Saturday's game will be at 3:10 p.m. Central Time. And if you have the MLB app and you aren't in the blackout zone, it is the MLB free game of the day. So that could be another way to watch the Royals. But on Sunday, it'll be a 12:40 first pitch. Jansen Junk is 4-1 with a 2.68 ERA. He's got a sub-1 whip, and he's just been very impressive all season long. In his final start of the first half, he threw 7 shutout innings against the Baltimore Orioles. The start before that, 6 shutout innings at Great American Ballpark. And he's doing this all without too many strikeouts. Only 5 strikeouts combined in those 2 starts. And then against Minnesota, back on July the 2nd, he threw a quality start, 6 innings of 2-run ball with 7 strikeouts. So he is the statistically best pitcher they're going to be facing on the weekend. We'll see how the first 2 games go, but another guy they don't have any familiarity with in Jansen Junk, that could pose some problems for them. And before we end things here, I do want to give some numbers for all 3 of these pitchers, at least what the Royals have done off of him. Jonathan India against Sandy Alcantara in his career is 3 for 10 with a 717 OPS. Luke Maile is actually 1 for 2 with a 1600 OPS against Alcantara. And then on Saturday against Cal Quantrill, the Royals do have more than a few guys that have some history off of him. Michael Garcia is 1 for 3. Jonathan India is 1 for 1. Believe he doubled in his only at-bat against him. Kyle Isbell's hitting 273 and 11 at-bats. Vinny Pasquantino is 1 for 2. Luke Maile 0 for 2. Salvador Perez is hitting 286 and 14 at-bats. And Bobby Wood Jr. is hitting 300 and 10 at-bats against him. And we know the Royals have not faced Jansen Junk in his big league career, unless I'm blanking on something, because he's 29 years old. He's more of a late bloomer there. I was actually wrong on that. Kyle Isbell did face him. He is 0 for 2 in his career, but still not a lot of familiarity with Jansen Junk. So the Royals and Marlins will kick off the second half tomorrow night. 6:10 is the first pitch. I believe it's going to be Seth Lugo, but I believe we'll know tomorrow morning. It will be Sandy Alcantara for the Marlins. Well, that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, it'll be a Mailbag Friday, but until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.